on this planet. Let's try that one more time. How is everyone this morning?
All right.
That's a little bit. I want to start, and you all have to. Not ready for that slide yet. Not ready. Go back to the other one. Did I do that? I must have. Well, she didn't do anything, so we're going to go back to the other one. Let me ask you to do me a big favor. Would you put your hands together and give big love to Heather Feely? You need to know, my friends, I'm not only honored to be with you today, but you really need to know how deeply humbled I really am. Because I am in the midst of those who do understand conservation, who understand, as Sarah mentioned, the importance of what you do. But I want to take you a little bit further because you're much more than that. You don't just provide Explorer magazines for free, some of you. You don't just work on helping people understand how to fish or boat or hunt or enjoy nature. You do much more than that. Through your efforts, you do shape our future. You have an opportunity to mold minds. You have an opportunity to alter attitudes. You have a golden opportunity to facilitate progress. Through your efforts, individuals will be able not only to appreciate wildlife, but to accept the fact that those who are facilitating that appreciation also appreciate human life. You have a chance to make this world a better place by helping those who are marginalized, those who may be on the fringes of society, those who feel alienated and left out. You can help them to feel not only that they are included, but that they are indeed a priority. I am more than honored, more than humbled to be in your midst today, because I realize this is a challenge you have already embraced. And my very presence here today will only help you to make that opportunity really worth it. And so in my eyes, you're not just conservation gurus. You're not just great communicators. You're not just the journalists, the educators, the marketers. No, in my eyes, each and every one of you is a true merchant of hope. I want you to think about that four-letter word called hope for just a second. Just think about that word. Because this nation of ours is still known around the world as the land of opportunity. Wall or no wall, people are going to come to our shores. Some will travel rickety rafts on wretched seas. Some will slip through barbed wire borders. Some will scale under or over a wall. Some will come by boat, by inner tube, by car, or by foot. But those who come will come brimming with something called hope. The sad truth is, there are individuals born and raised in this country who are feeling so marginalized, so alienated, that there simply is no hope for something better. As merchants of hope, you've got an opportunity to send a message of inclusion, a message that says we embrace, a message that says we will not put profits over people, we will not make wildlife a priority over human life, we will not denigrate or destroy each other. We will build up this land, and we will build up one another. And so, with that in mind, when I got the call last Monday because I realized I was able to be flexible enough to come before an organization that proudly does what you know has to be done. It's not just conserving our land, it's conserving our mission. It's conserving our pride as a nation that truly embraces everyone. And so I'm going to talk to you from the heart today. I already made up my mind. Before I got here, as I sat on that runway in Charlotte waiting for that connecting flight to Springfield to finally move, and it sat there for 3 hours. I realized Mother Nature was having her way. I said, it's okay, I'm going to have a good time when I get to Springfield. And so, I want you to have a good time too. Now, I have to tell you, we're talking about diversity. Whenever I speak to an audience, I don't care how large or small, I don't care how young or old, I don't care what race, religion, creed, or color. My audience is always required to follow the rules of my culture. And I'm from a culture that believes very strongly in something referred to as call and response. I know some of you are sitting here and you're probably thinking, I never heard of that, I don't know what this woman is talking about. If you've never heard of call and response before, then you're going to be my conservative friends this morning. Now, conservative friends only. All I want you to do, if I say something that you know to be true, if you find that you can agree with me, and indeed you can relate to what I'm saying, then conservative friends only. All I want you to do is just nod your head like this. Give me a big smile. I mean a big one. And that will let me know that you hear me and you follow me. Now let me get a reaction. Only my conservative friends. Heads nodding. Come on now, big smile. I see you in the back, you're looking good, all right? Now there are others of you, and you know who you are. You are not conservative in the least. You know what I'm talking about when I say call and response. Well, you're going to be my loose friends. Now, loose friends, don't let me down. I came a long way for a short time on real short notice. I've got to know you're with me. Now, loose friends, if I say something that you know to be true, if you find that you can agree with me, and you're able to relate to what I'm saying, then loose friends, it's all right. You can say amen. You can say right on. You can say, you go, girl. You can laugh out loud. You can clap your hands. You can raise the roof. You can go woof, woof, woof. You can do anything that makes you feel most comfortable. Now, can I please get a reaction from all of my loose friends?
Amen.
All right, now loose friends, don't let me down. And conservative friends, feel free to cross over at any time. Most important, those heads right. I came here today believing not only was I standing before an incredible audience, but actually came here today believing that you all understand that we cannot protect Mother Nature until we protect the mothers and children of our nation. We must nurture. Sarah mentioned storytelling. Well, let me just make sure we understand that sometimes it means that we have to do more than what we're doing. And you've done so much already. I did a little homework. This is an incredible organization. Trust me, you don't last for 80 years unless you're doing something right. But I also know, can I get a head nod? I also know that some of you realize now that you actually have to do more.
Amen.
Sometimes you do have to go out on that proverbial limb, because that is where the fruit is. Sometimes one of the biggest things we have to do in embracing this notion of diversity and embracing this notion of inclusion, sometimes the biggest thing we have to do is make some changes. And trust me, I know change is a challenge. If you've been doing anything for 21 days or longer, you have developed a habit, and can we all agree, habits are hard to break.
Amen.
Trust me, I know. I think I was the last one in my neighborhood who got rid of my 8-track. It was hard. And I know all the under 40 people now looking around saying, what is an 8-track? I'm getting older. I realize there's some young folks in here. Some of you are probably so young you don't even know who shot JR. The truth is, sometimes change is necessary, but sometimes the biggest change we have to make is in our own mind. You're leaders. I don't care what your title is. You are a leader. But keep in mind, more than anything else, leadership is a process for promoting change. Oh yeah, managers just maintain the status quo. It takes a leader, a visionary, a change agent to realize if we keep doing the same thing, we're going to get the same results.
Amen.
Change. And leaders rise to the challenge every time. And yet I'm aware of the fact that there are a lot of people who resist change. Now, I'm sure I'm talking about those folks who you left in your offices back in your home state. I know we're talking about them. So this information you can share with them. But when I think about how we resist change, think about it. These are some of the excuses. If you've heard any of these from those other folks, just nod your head and I know you're with me.
Oh, yeah.
Now, people say these things all the time when they don't want to change. When you don't want to change, any excuse will do. Okay, I don't have help. I don't have training. It's too impractical. What if it fails? It's complicated. We're already inundated. It's a good idea, but no one wants to do this. Let's be realistic. This last one that's coming up, I couldn't write it out, but I know you can say it. When we don't want to do it, any excuse will do. Change sometimes is painful. And yet, as painful as it is always necessary. When we focus on the new, when we're able to accept the fact. I like the new day, Sarah, because it is a new beginning. When we accept the fact that change may be painful, we are able then to move forward. But keep in mind, sometimes it means that we have to confront within ourselves the fact that we don't always go into situations with the right attitude. Whether you know it or not. Our attitudes about other people, our attitudes about situations, our attitudes about communicating and bringing in new audiences. Sometimes those attitudes get in the way. Because your attitude, whatever it is going to have an impact on your expectations. And we all know the power of expectations. There's another beatitude now that says, blessed are those who expect nothing, for they shall not be disappointed. Our expectations dictate our practices and our policies, which dictate the attitude of other people and, in fact, the behavior of other people. When people destroy nature, very often it's misplaced aggression. They're angry. But very often their anger can only be shown by destroying what's right there in front of them. Y'all with me? And so if we're going to have the kind of impact that we want, if we're going to remove those attitudes that keep us from going the extra mile, from doing more, from embracing those who have never been embraced before, if we're going to do that, it means that we come to grips with the fact that there are some obstacles that we have to overcome. You can call this proverb the really foundation of who we are. Because I am, because we are. And if we can understand that everything we do must include every I out there, then we can indeed begin to move forward. But it means, as I said, accepting the fact that there are some obstacles. Very often we judge people, we judge cultures, we judge people who are different. And keep in mind, despite the fact that diversity is here to stay, there are still people out there who believe that if you're diverse, you must be deficient. There's still folks who think if you're different, you've got to be deficient. There's still folks who don't realize our strength comes through our differences. Amen. We judge very often based on prior education. If we don't think people are educated, instead of giving them that education, we ignore some of those things. I keep saying we, but you know I'm not talking about you. All the other folks, you know the ones, you know who they are. All too often, we fail to realize that many people we have to meet where they are. I'm one of those, I'm an educator. Okay, make no bones about it. But I know how easy it is to judge young people because of what they have already done. If you're a parent, you probably know by now. How many of you are parents of more than one child? More than one? Okay, if you've got more than one, first of all, you need to pat yourself on the back. But if you've got more than one child, I know one thing you have discovered. They learn and grow at different rates. Can I get ahead now?
Oh, yeah.
Amen.
Oh, yeah.
My oldest daughter, 8 months old, walking and talking. We were going, genius! Look at this genius. We're inviting all the neighbors by the watch. Come on, y'all watch. Girl, walk for. We just knew she'd be president by the time she was 35. She did graduate from college, SGA president, spent a few years working on Capitol Hill for a U.S. congressman, who married off to a high-powered lobbyist, so you know we're still hopeful. But then my middle girl came along, 17 months old, and we were still going, come on, honey, just one. She didn't give up on her. We didn't assume she'd have to crawl into kindergarten. We didn't like the neighbors by the watch either. And this girl not only walks now, she runs like an Olympic queen. My point is, all too often we give up too soon when it seems that others are taking too long. As merchants of hope, you can be the wind beneath the wings of a child out there who's fascinated, but never had that fascination evolve past mere fascination. But you've got to get past prior behavior. Just because somebody may have done some bad things to a grasshopper in their youth doesn't mean that they're going to attack wildlife. Doesn't mean that they're going to destroy parks. Doesn't mean that they're going to put oil in lakes. Although somebody did that, didn't they? Just because of prior behavior, we cannot say that we have to exclude that audience. We judge all too often based on socioeconomic status. I don't know where somebody got the notion that there are poor folks out there we can't reach. Because you know what? The truth is, all of us are broke. Some of us are just broke at a higher level. Can I get a head nod? Hey, I know this is the 30th. I'm not the only one in this room who's ever experienced too much month at the end of the money. Somebody knows what I'm talking about.
We all do.
Somebody doesn't even care hands meet, as long as they wave at each other every now and then. The reality is, all too often, we do judge communities based on average income. We determine what schools our message needs to reach based on income. And all too often we miss unique opportunities to make a difference because we're stuck on family income. I don't mind telling you all. My background, my beginnings were humble. I was born and raised in Chicago, on Chicago's west side. I was one of those kids who grew up not believing that anything could happen because nothing happened to anybody else in my community. I don't mind telling you that my mother, and believe me, I'm one of those chauvinists who believe I had the greatest mother on the planet. Now, I know everybody feels that way about their mom, but you can't tell me that mine was not the most giving, the most loving. When she made her transition at the very young age of 56, it almost destroyed me. Born to a 19-year-old mother who was a school crossing guard for over 20 years. My daddy dropped out of school in 7th grade. But he fought valiantly in one of our wars and was acknowledged for heroism. But my parents could not tutor me to do well on the California achievements. They could not do homework. In fact, by the time I was in 5th grade, I knew I was the smartest one in the house. My parents relied on people outside of the home to help me to become what I could be. I made a decision to be a teacher because I fell in love in kindergarten. Now, my kindergarten teacher had to weigh about 800 pounds, but I said that with love. I love that woman. Sitting on her lap was heaven. We just rolled all around. Some morning she would come in there feeling real good. She spread out. If I was up there at one time, hold everybody. Hugging her was like taking a giant marshmallow. I was a slow start in kindergarten. I started school, could not write my name, did not know the alphabet, couldn't even count. My first day of school, I say my first day. I was a week late with chicken pox. My first day of school, they let us out for morning recess. I was home. My mother said, "What are you doing here?" I said, "They let us out." I was wondering why all the little children stopped to play. I went home. But there was a woman who loved me anyway. And I was leaving kindergarten, I had tears streaming down my face. I said, "I want to be a teacher. I just want to be like you." She said, "You'll be better than me." Now, I didn't think it'd get any better than that. Even though the bubble busted in 1st grade, I tell you, my 1st grade teacher was so mean. In my 1st grade class, nobody saw a spot run. But I can stand before you today as a professional with 5 advanced degrees because there were some merchants of hope who came within my orb of influence, who made a decision to look beyond poverty, to look beyond a slow start, to look beyond what really was bad behavior, to tap into the greatness that did exist in a poor black girl. I didn't know we were poor. In fact, I didn't find out how poor we were until I was grown. I was grown when I found out we weren't poor, we were poor. Could not afford the OR, just poor. I was grown when I found out that as a child I was culturally deprived, disadvantaged, underprivileged, and latchkey. Yeah, that's a new one. And now I find out I came from a dysfunctional family. And they use that word dysfunctional. They want you to know something is seriously wrong. They spell it with a Y. I'm sorry. Unlike the poet who once wrote, I don't want anyone ever talking about my horrid childhood. They'll never understand. All the while, I was quite happy. We judge based on income. We judge even based on how people look, how they dress, wear their hair, even how they smell. I heard folks refer to other folks who are different as FLPs, and I didn't know what FLP meant. I have to tell you, I kept trying to, well, what is an FLP? Finally, I asked the woman, I said, I keep hearing you talk about the FLPs. Who are they? She said, girl, those are the funny looking people. Funny people. Now, you don't get the original FLP. When I was a child, I thought I was the ugliest person God had ever created. Long, lanky, awkward looking, never said everything about me. I go to school, go to every class, but I see myself way in the back. Now, I'm not saying that's why you all are back there. I didn't want to judge. I just look like fade into the woodwork. The reality is, beauty is still in the eye of the beholder. There's beauty in everyone. It just takes beautiful people to see it. And even though I'm saying this, I know somebody sitting here right now is sitting here thinking, you haven't been to my area. You do have some ugly people out there. Whoever you are thinking that, you had to have read a magazine article that I read several years ago, and it actually said 1 out of every 4 human beings really is ugly. I just want you to remember that the very next time you're sitting at a table of 4. Just remember, on any given day, you might be the odd one. Everything is possible. If we can accept beauty and those who are diverse and different, it'll be easier to embrace them. But then we have to get past gender bias. We have to get past age discrimination. And we have to get past, sadly, in the year 2018, we still have to move past race and ethnicity. If we can understand that need, we can maximize our potential. Sarah mentioned telling stories. Let me make sure it's not just the telling of a story. Sometimes it's how we tell the story. It's an accepting the fact that people will remember very often, not so much what we say. People will remember how we make them feel. When we tell our story, we have to understand that just giving people facts isn't enough. Okay? Our stories have to be animated, and we have to allow our own personalities and our own enthusiasm and excitement to go into those messages. Let me just give you an example. Because the truth is, you can give information a lot of different ways. You all are communication, you know that. But understand how people receive it is what's key. Not the fact that you put it out there. Did it resonate? Did they get it? Let me just give you 2 examples of the wrong way and a much better way. Now, we all know by now that communication is total person to total person. I know much of the communication that you do may be electronic, it may be through other mediums, but whenever we get a chance to reach out person to person, we want to take it. We want people to see our excitement. We want people to know, and if we reach out one-on-one, keep in mind, communication really is total person to total person. Only 7% of what we communicate is words. I said 7%. If I were to stand here right now and say, I like all of you, somebody would believe it. Now, I said the words. But that was only 7% of what got communicated. 38% of what we communicate through our rate of speaking. Ladies, did your mother ever tell you to watch out for fast talking men? And now the research tells us it's the slow talkers we need to worry about. But rate of speaking, tone. Anyone ever been told, watch your tone?
Oh, yeah.
And you know, tone can come through an email. Tone can come through a flyer. Okay? We communicate based on volume. Don't you just love those people who say, I am not shouting! Rate, tone, volume. 38% of what we communicate. But a whopping 55% we communicate without ever opening our mouths. We call it body language. We call it cyberspace anger. Without ever opening our mouths, we can make an impact. We just want to make sure ours is a good one. Now, you tell me which one of these communicators is the most effective. I already know. This will be first do communicator X, and then communicator Y. This is communicator X. Good morning, everyone. I said good morning.
Good morning.
That's just fine. And I know what to expect here. But I have been given an opportunity to speak to you, and I'm just going to give you some words to remember. I know you won't remember them, but I'm going to give them to you anyway. And those of you who remember, you get a reward. Just 20 words and phrases. Those of you who don't remember, well, I didn't think you'd do that well anyway. But I hope you do. The words and phrases are paper door, bed, Bible, cover, floor, chair, window, flowers, nails, cup, water, flying carpet, Goodyear blimp, happy birthday banner, RFK Stadium, church, saints, minister, Sunday school. Someone give me those words and phrases right now. So I'll know that you got it.
Sunday school.
I don't like smart alecky people. I've had it with you. I know you. You know what? I'm sorry. This must be a slow group. Let me slow it up. Give me that one up.
Amen.
The words and phrases again. Paper, door, bed, Bible, covers, floor, chair, window, flowers, nails, cup, water, flying carpet, Goodyear blimp, happy birthday banner, RFK Stadium, church, saints, minister, Sunday school. Now someone give me those words and phrases right now in order. Funny to you. See, as much as I'm trying, and I'm trying so hard to reach you, you just refuse to be reached. I'm trying as hard as I can to send you a message, and you refuse to accept it. There's nothing else I can do. Now that was communicator X. This is communicator Y. Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Oh, I know I'm in the presence of greatness here. Let me try that one more time. Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
I am so excited. I've been asked to share with you some words and phrases, but I don't want to give you words and phrases in a vacuum. Because if I do, you might not remember those. Let me just see. These are the words and phrases. Paper door, bed, Bible, cover, store, chair, window, flowers, nails, cup, water, flying carpet, Goodyear blimp, happy birthday banner, RFK Stadium, church, saints, minister, Sunday school. Can someone give me those words and phrases right now in order? But I bet you will. And to show you how brilliant you are, let me tell you a story. I was in a hotel room once, and someone came along and they slid a sheet of paper right under my door. Landed right by my bed. On top of the Bible, I pushed the covers onto the floor. Picked up a chair, threw it out of the window. It landed in some flowers. I love flowers. But they turned to nails. So I picked up a cup. In it I ran some water. Looked up and I saw a flying carpet the size of a Goodyear blimp, carrying a happy birthday banner. flying right over RFK Stadium. Flew right into a church where there was some saints and a minister teaching Sunday school. Easy stuff. Now let's do it all together. Someone slid their sheet up.
Paper.
Right under mine.
Door.
Slid it right by mine.
Bed.
On top of the
Bible.
I pushed the
Covers.
onto the
Floor.
lift up the
Chair.
to it out of the
Window.
and in some
Flowers.
I love flowers, but they turned to
Nails.
So I picked up a
Cup.
in and I ran some
Water.
Looked up and I saw a the
Carpet.
size of a
Goodyear blimp.
carrying a
Happy birthday
Turned
banner.
right over.
RFK Stadium.
Right into a
Church.
where there was some
Saints.
and a
Minister.
teaching
Sunday school.
easy stuff. I knew you all would remember those words. You can give me those words now without the story. You don't need that story. You can go without the story. Let's go without the story. Let's go.
Paper.
Door. Bed. Bible.
Covers.
Floor. Deck.
Chair. Window. Flowers. Nails. Cup. Water. Fly carpet. Goodyear blimp. Happy birthday banner. RFK Stadium.
Church. Minister. Sunday school.
Everybody is great. I knew you could do it. You know what? You all are so brilliant. You can do that backwards. Yes, you can. You can do it backwards. Let's do it backwards. Let's go.
Sunday school.
Minister. Saints. Church.
RFK Stadium. Happy birthday banner. Goodyear blimp. Flying carpet. Water. Cup.
Nails.
Flowers. Window. Chair. Floor. Covers. Bible. Bed. Door. Paper.
A plus plus.
All right.
Truly, it's not what we say. It's how we choose to make our message heard. It's not what we do. It's how we do it. We can talk about reaching out, or we can roll up our sleeves and accept the fact that sometimes we may be guilty of having the wrong attitudes. But as my children often say, some of us do need a checkup from the neck up. Attitude is key to everything that we do. If we can accept that, we can move forward. But we cannot move forward, my friends. We cannot really embrace the call for inclusion as we have already embraced it in our own minds. Unless we're able to reach out and help someone else to see what we see. It's been said that when you see someone drinking a dirty glass of water, you don't laugh at them. You don't tease them. You give them a clean glass so that they can see and taste the difference. For every bad action, there's a corresponding good action that can take place. Our challenge is to make sure that we are all about good actions. The truth is, there are those out there who may be not in our sights, but they exist in our communities. There's a world out there that is far more diverse than this room. And if we accept that, we can do exactly what Sarah has reminded us we must do. Because this earth and the fullness thereof belongs to all of us. It means that we have to move forward, not just with a greater determination, but with an understanding that we are saving lives. Not just wild lives. We are saving lives. And that means that we have to understand resuscitation. We have to bring back to life those whose lives have been destroyed. One of my books did become a national bestseller. It's called From Rage to Hope, Strategies for Reclaiming Black and Hispanic Students. I mention it because the beauty, and I'm not trying to suggest that it's the greatest book since sliced bread. It has sold over 100,000 copies. But the fascinating thing to me is that it's a book being read in areas where there is no diversity. People will realize, oh, they're coming. Okay? People will realize that we better get ready because diversity will impact us all. Y'all with me?
Yep.
Amen.
In writing that book, I accepted the fact that there are obstacles. We can only move past them if we work together. And so, my friends, I'm going to call on you right now to go forward as merchants of hope who can provide CPR. Now, I don't mean that good old cardiopulmonary resuscitation like that. I'm talking about the kind of CPR that will not only restore life, but definitely make it more abundant. Because when we can enjoy nature, we can do just that. When we can put people over profits, we can do that. Because the C is not just your role as a conservationist, not just your role as a good communicator. Truly, both of those, I believe you are. But the C is also your willingness to change. It was Shaw who said it best when he said, if you can't change your mind, you can't change anything. Amen. Most assuredly, change has to take place. The C is also for your compassion. Keep in mind, there are people out there who are hurting in ways that sometimes we don't know they hurt. And sometimes we don't always get connected to the pain that others are feeling, but many of those we are trying to reach the new audiences. Some are dealing with incredible pain. I was introduced today, and I actually had to collect myself. Heather said, the mother of 5 children. As of last September, it became 4. When my only son succumbed to a heart ailment. And when he made his transition as a mother, I realized that there were a whole lot of other mothers whose sons may have been lost, not through natural causes, because I know about those unnatural deaths too. Having had a husband who was robbed and murdered on his way home from a store. But I know now that that boy who pulled that trigger, something inside of him had already died, long before that gun was in his hand. I devote my life to dealing with the pain that others feel. Because I know that we cannot bring about change unless we have the kind of compassion that allows us to connect with others where they are. And if their attitudes are not like ours, it's something that caused that to happen. And if we don't understand through our messages, even if you don't see the audiences you're trying to reach, your message has to embrace the fact that, yes, you may have had challenges, but all of us know that no challenge is ever overcome by running away from it. Compassion allows us to help people to realize we are there. Not just to change what we do in nature, but to change what we do in our nation. Y'all with me? Yeah. Compassion is a powerful C word. Another one that I want to give you is consistency. Because I know I've been to 1 trillion conferences. Well, slight exaggeration. Maybe 1 billion. And I can tell you, I've seen so many who leave Those swag bags are so cute. Thank you, Heather, for mine. But if you go home and just put it down, and you don't take into action everything that you've heard, then this was all for naught. And so how we connect, how we are consistent in using the information that we receive, even when others seem like, I want to hear it, say it anyway. Even when you're communicating and you later find out they didn't read any of this, and that means if they're not reading it, understand, communication is total person to total person. And who are the dots? Schools, rec centers, religious institutions. There are people everywhere. We just have to make sure, because we have been given a charge, we've got to make sure we reach them. The C will allow you to connect where you have to. The P in CPR, not just your patience, and it is a virtue. The P is your persistence. Persistence is a learned behavior, but you can't teach it unless you already have it. And when you are persistent, you're not going to give up. Anybody here ever learn how to ride a bicycle? Okay, some of you didn't raise your hands, but there's hope for you. But if you learn how to ride a bicycle ever, let me see your hand. Okay, all right. Did anyone in the learning process, now I'm not talking about those of you who learn with training wheels. I'm talking about those of you who learned the old-fashioned way, just getting on that bike and hoping that you didn't fall. Did anyone ever fall down?
Oh, yeah.
Amen.
And did you fall down more than once?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
But no one ever came over you and said, stop! You fallen twice! Back to the tricycle. You know how to ride. Because someone made you believe that you could. And no matter how many times you fell down, you got back up and you started again. Persistence is necessary in what you do. Because there's some people who fear failure so much they don't try. And when you don't try, how do you know you wouldn't make it? When we fear failure, sometimes it's easy to say, not me. Case in point, how many of you ever learned how to, not learn. How many of you ever been skydiving? Okay, there are a few brave folks in here, but the rest of you, fear of failure. Or we'll keep you trying. But we have learned to do those things we love doing because we refuse to give up. Can I get ahead now?
Oh, yeah.
Persistence. And sometimes persistence can be given through mass communications, through encouraging words, yeah. But a lot of times, persistence is what we're able to give to those who are also on the front lines. Those who are in those communities we try to reach, because all of us, when we connect the dots, there's always going to be a change agent out there we can tap. There's always going to be somebody who hears our message and can help us to get it out there. Y'all with me?
Oh, yeah.
Yes, ma'am.
Our persistence allows us to embrace people. I know what your priority is, conservation. But you can't get there until you reach the people. You can't get to where you want to go until that P allows you to be persistent. And I don't know about you, but I learned a long time ago, if at first you don't succeed, you try, and you try again. I never forget, I think it was a counselor who once said to me, she said, Crystal, if you studied a third as much time as you spend jumping double dutch, you'd be a genius. Now I admit, I was a double dutch queen. 4 years in a row.
All right.
I had to work on my move. But I took her up on it, turned my life around. I never forgotten. The first time I went camping, Girl Scout sign, went camping, didn't know what to do. had never spent that kind of time outdoors. But I credit the woman who came to my home, and convinced my parents that this would be a good experience for me, and that I would be able to come back and teach them some things. They got excited. And I'll never forget all the things I didn't know that I learned. And so yesterday morning, before I boarded my flight, I went to embrace two little granddaughters who were going away to summer camp out in the wilds for the first time. And I helped them to appreciate not only the fact that they were gone, but how much they would grow from the experience. What I'm saying to you is, sometimes that P has to be presence. That P has to be people to people. That P is what we prioritize, what we think is most important. And when others start thinking that you think animals are more important than them, when people start saying, I want dog rights because I can't get any civil rights, when people start believing that our focus is not on those who must be in charge of our planet, we miss the mark, and our planet suffers. Y'all with me?
Oh, yeah.
That P is so powerful. But that R is not only our respect for one another, it's relationships that we build with one another. And as I often tell educators, relationships are key. Because what we know from many of our young people is that they receive things very often because of the relationship they have with who is sharing the information. Y'all with me? And so, you may have to connect the dots, develop relationships with those who have to develop the relationships with those who have to develop the relationships. But the relationships have to be developed. Keep in mind, when we develop those relationships, we don't even know where that positive energy will go. You plant the seeds, and I guarantee you'll make a difference. Relationships are key, but so is your resilience. One of the things that I learned from my first camping experience is that animals know how to survive. They can't always dodge a bullet on one of those two-legged animals out there, but they do protect and nurture their own. They survive by nurturing one another. They survive when they bounce back. And we wonder, they don't have doctors out there with them, they don't have, all the stuff that we have, and yet, somehow, they're resilient. We must understand that we are still supreme over animals. Our resilience is key to their survival. And I know resilience is something that you all have. I know many of you have your own stories to tell, the things you've had to overcome. I know everyone in this room has probably had a setback and had to realize at some point that a setback is just a setup or a comeback. I know that many of you can tell us all a thing or two about your challenges and your struggles and your victories. Those are the stories that will resonate with others. When people know that you have seen what they have seen, or that you understand it, it makes a difference. I will tell you, I mentioned my husband earlier, but I just want you to know that because of that setback, indeed, even last September, my son closed his eyes for the last time, I realized my story might help somebody else. My pain might be just what someone else needs so that they can actually do more too. And so even though there was a part of me that says, you don't want everybody to know your business, you tell those stories. You let people know where you've grown, how you've grown. You impact other lives by making sure that everybody understands, hey, been there too. I know where you are. I've been where you are. But together, we can make a difference. I've shared a lot with you today, and I know you've got a whole lot more that is going to take place, but let me remind you also of the power of the information that you're going to receive. You are the informational list. You are those who thrive on information. You are those who don't be an information hoarder. Don't get in there saying, nobody else is none of this. No, it's got to be shared. Got to be disseminated. But keep in mind, how you go about that will be the determining factor. And if you can do that, you'll make a powerful difference. Now, I've given you some information this morning. If you choose to ignore it, the next 3 hours on that runway in Charlotte was wasted 3 hours. If you choose to ignore it, it will be to all of our detriment. I want you to take the information, not just from me, but the information that you're going to receive from so many others. Make it count. Make it work for you. I don't want to talk about consequences, but I think you know what they are. If we don't save our wildlife, we suffer. If we don't save one another, we suffer even more. Whatever we do will benefit so many others. But I have to close with a story, because some of you may not use the information that I'm sharing. Some of you may not realize that you're merchants of hope, and you may not even want to be called one. I don't want to believe that. But let me say, I'm telling you this story, and I should also tell you, in case anybody asks, I do not have books to sell. I didn't bring any books to sell, but if you want one, you see me right over there doing your break, and I will definitely tell you how to get it, all right? In fact, you might even be able to take this one. But let me just close by reminding you of your power as informationalists, who happen to also be conservationists. I heard a story once about a man who received some information. He decided it's not worth using. He figured he knew more than the person who gave him the information. So he wanted to ignore it. This was a cowboy. He was in the state of Maryland, and he wanted to buy a horse that was fast enough to get him from the East Coast to the West Coast in 36 hours. So he bought a horse from a horse farmer named Reverend Jones. And he told Reverend Jones, he said, it's got to be fast. I'm going to ride this horse hard. You got to get me to California. Fast. Reverend Jones said, well, let me give you Speedy. Speedy flies. This horse moves so fast, it blow you away. Speedy is what you need. See, it costs a little bit more than all the other horses, but you need Speedy. Cowboy said, yeah, okay. Paid him cash money. Then Reverend Jones says, I got to give you some information. Cowboy said, listen, man, I'm the best, I'm the brightest, I know where I'm going, and I know how to get there. Reverend Jones says, boy, you better listen. You need this information. He said, because Speedy will only move if you say, praise the Lord. And then he goes at top speed. But you can't get him to stop unless you say, amen. God will say, yeah. Wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. He bid Jones to do our Speedy off, saddled him up, jumped into his riding clothes, jumped on top of Speedy, and he goes, giddy up. Well, Speedy just sat there. Come on, animal, move! He's still sitting there. You dumb horse! Go! Speedy hasn't moved. Suddenly, after wasting precious time, he remembered and he said, oh, wait, praise the Lord! And Speedy shot out. This horse went leaping over the Appalachian Mountains. Boogity, 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 boogity. I mean, he was flying. Jumped over the Blue Ridge. Leaped over the Great Smoky. Jumped over Mount Rushmore. Leaped over Salt Lake. Jumped over Pikes Peak. and not necessarily in that order. And all of a sudden, looked up and there it was, the rippling water of the Pacific. He said, "See, I made it, I made it." This was still popping. Realized it was fast approaching a cliff. Knew it had a 5-mile drop, so it started pulling on the reins. Whoa, boy, slow down, stop! Speedy kept moving, boogity, 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 boogity. Now his heart is beating fast, palms are sweaty, stomach was about to come up out of his mouth. He could see the very, very edge of the cliff. He could see the rocks below. He said stop in every language he could think of. Speedy is still moving at top speed. Suddenly as he got to the tip of the cliff, suddenly, just before he went another step, he remembered. And he said, "Amen!" Speedy stopped dead on the money. Cowboy looked up and he said, "Praise the Lord." Thank you so much. You go forward. Thank you.
I think we got a wonderful, wonderful mentor of Dr. Parker today. We are going to take a 15-minute break.